Hello, everybody. Welcome to another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. We're back at it again, and we're going to get on into it. But before we do, as always, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And with that being said, here's a quick word from our sponsors. Organic herbs and botanicals, skincare and edibles, wellness for body and mind. The Brothers Apothecary. Fine teas and remedies. Ronald Records. From indie gems to classic hits, discover the heart of local music. With live shows all the time, up close and personal, and regular releases on their in-house label. Ronald Records. Supporting the community, one track at a time. All right, thank you all so much for watching. Again, shout out The Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, let's go ahead and get on into it. Here is today's guests.
What up? I'm Charlie.
And I'm Cary. And together we are Westbound City Train.
Hello.
Hello.
How's it going?
Thanks for joining us. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, who you are, where you're from, what you do, give us that Tinder profile of your involvement with music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm Charlie. This is my wife, Cary. I play clawhammer banjo.
Oh, yeah.
She plays the fiddle. We play a lot of music in Portland.
Yeah.
I grew up here in Portland, in the Portland metro area.
Mm-hmm.
Grew up in Gresham, Vancouver, went to school on the west side.
Okay.
Took guitar lessons in middle school at Artichoke Music, our community institution.
Nice.
And yeah, Charlie and we actually kicked off our life of music together 20 years ago this summer.
Oh, congratulations.
Summer 2004, we both moved back into Portland. We were both on the East Coast. And Charlie invited me to the Marley Brothers concert at the ballroom. And I'm like...
Which that was our first kiss.
Oh,
well.
exciting.
Hey.
Exciting. Hell yeah, that's awesome.
And there was this weekly reggae night at Montego Bay, now the Thai Chili Jam up on Southwest 18th and Jefferson in Southwest Portland. And we discovered our love of dance together. And I had gotten a little bit into underground hip hop earlier, in high school. Mm-hmm. I was back from college, got a little deeper, and Chuck was thick in that underground hip hop scene. So invited me to
explains the MF Doom ring.
AC Alone.
MF Doom's my all-time favorite MC.
Yes, sir. All caps. R.I.P.
Oh, yeah.
You know. So yeah, there was the A-Team had a performance at the Roseland, AC Alone, and Abstract Rude. And so that got me a little deeper into that underground scene. And I was so stoked that he invited me along.
I really liked her. I was super nervous. We were friends for, probably good 5 years before we ever hooked up or whatever. But I remember my homeboy Resin, R.I.P., he used to always be like, yo, Cary, what about my friend Chuck? Man, I'd be like, dude, shut up, man.
He was hyping his boy up,
That's how it's
And we just kept running into each other over the years. And we both shared that love of, dance first and foremost. And then ultimately playing music together starting in 2018. I always loved, old time music. I knew of it as bluegrass music initially. This was in college. Deadwood Revival was this band that played, down here in Portland, I came to find out later, but a lot up in Olympia, Washington, where I went to school at the Evergreen State College. So I learned my love of old time music. They played the clawhammer, banjo, guitar, fiddle. I got to get up on stage with them on one occasion, I got up on stage when they didn't play my favorite song, Daisy. I'm like, come on, you didn't play Daisy. He's like, come on up here, bust out the, Kim's guitar. So that was so fun to perform. Those are my early days of performing. Because I started, with guitar lessons in middle school, started with, some little riffs and kind of learning about chords, but it didn't really click until I was in college and a friend of mine had a guitar and a bunch of, pieces of paper music. I was sifting through them, busted out Wagon Wheel. That was the first song that I ever played at an open mic up in Olympia. And then I just played a few open mics here and there, learned that I loved to perform. I loved, that rugged and raw acoustic music. And then when Chuck and I finally got together, he was really deep in the EDM scene. So dubstep and drum and bass.
Drum and bass is number one, jungle music.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that was around 2009 that, because we kept just running into each other over the years at different shows and just kind of loosely stayed in touch as acquaintances and friends who shared this love of music. And then in 2010, we finally started dating. Chuck blew out his knee.
Oh no.
Busting out on the dance floor.
Okay.
At the Honesty and Excision show, which was
hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
So good. So good. We both assumed he was like, oh, I gotta do this. I gotta bust out so hard on the dance floor. And I was over here
I was trying to impress her with my moves.
I gotta bust out real hard too. And then come to find out we're both just so hyped up in those early days of dating, But yeah, so he introduced me to this electronic music that I hadn't really dug into much. And then I shared my love of acoustic music with him. We got married in 2011. 9 months later, I think you know what happened. We adopted a dog. His name is Banjo. We ended up naming him Banjo because Chuck knew that I loved the banjo. And it kind of went, I guess there was a bit of a drought in terms of learning about new music that was, clawhammer, banjo based. And then in 2018, Chuck opened the floodgates.
Well, I never thought I'd actually be playing music. I was a break dancer for 10 years before I busted my knee out, but I've always been a big time music fan. I grew up in a family that, I when I was a kid, I would say I want to be a rock star when I grow up. But of course, what I really wanted to do was just play music, which I didn't really have a supportive family and stuff. I remember when I tried to learn how to play, my mom's boyfriend was like, oh, you don't know what you're doing, whatever. And, I got my feelings hurt, or whatever. And then I just never picked it up again. But, I got really into punk rock and stuff like Black Flag, Dead Kennedys, and the Vandals, and that basically was my life. And when I first moved to Portland when I was 18, I went to every single punk rock show I ever dreamed of going to.
Okay.
I lived I when I was in the desert, 29 Palms is where I originally was living at, when I was a teenager and stuff, and I would dream about be in my bedroom dreaming about going to punk rock shows.
Yeah.
I moved to Portland. I did all that stuff, and I did that for a couple years, but then, I used to hang out the park blocks on the streets all the time and stuff. And I met all these raver kids and stuff, and they're the ones that kind of got me into all this drum and bass, which I consider punk rock of the electronic scene. You know what I'm saying?
That's a valid observation.
Yeah. And so I
see that stream of thought.
Yeah. So that's how I felt about it and stuff. And yeah, I was just into all that, and then, as I kind of went through drum and bass, I got into, like you were saying, underground hip hop, Living Legends, MF Doom, hieroglyphics, all that type of stuff, which all that stuff is cut from the same cloth.
Yeah.
To me, a lot of the same heads get into all that type of stuff. And, and then when I got married to Cary, she actually played the guitar and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, she actually plays herself. And that's kind of cool. And she started making that kind of normal around the house. It's like, oh, no, we do play stringed instruments here. Yeah. As, it was real funny. I started getting, as we're a couple of years in our marriage, and we started going through an old time music phase, which it kind of has the same drive as punk rock. You know what I'm saying? And I started getting inspired by some people. I remember Squirrel Butter was one, and the Tall Boys. They're from Seattle. Al Scorch, this band, the Tillers. I started getting really inspired by this banjo stuff.
Squirrel Butter is a great name.
Yeah,
that's a fun one.
Yeah, they're really nice. They're up in Seattle, and then I saw this dude on the Tall Boys playing the fiddle, and it just looked so cool, and sounded so sick. I was like, I want to try that, and then I went and bought a cheap fiddle from Trade Up Music. And then I remember I tried playing it, and dude, it hurt my neck so bad. I was like, dude, this
No
sucks,
shoulder rest.
dude. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure my form sucked and everything. But then I just gave it to Cary, and she had a banjo. And, you know, she was like, dude, why don't you give this banjo a try? And then I was like, dude, I don't play a banjo. Dude. And like, we got in some big old argument about it or whatever. And then like,
Bro, come on. Just trust me on this one.
and you know, after arguing for a while, I picked it up and like, I was like, oh, these strings feel good on my fingers. And then I pulled up some YouTube videos, and there's this Play Better Banjo channel. This dude, what's it, Ryan Spearman. And I just checked out the regular bum ditty instructional video, and I just practiced that bum ditty on the banjo, and I fell in love with the way my fingers were hitting those strings. It felt so therapeutic to me and stuff. And the rest is history, basically, after that. And then, you know, I had a big old football card collection at the time. You know, I'm a football fan. I love the 49ers, whatever.
And somebody has to.
Yeah,
I'm kidding.
I do. Me and my brother do. Trust me. I got to have something mainstream in my life, right? And anyways, dude, I sold all my football cards, bought banjos and stuff. And, you know, it was
Couple music trips.
Yeah, it was the best decision I ever did.
Oh, yeah.
In my life. It really was, you know, because, you know, when you have football cards, you can have the most badass card there is in the world. You can show it to someone and be like, oh, Joe Montana rookie card? That's nice. Let's move right on along.
Yeah. Yeah, but you show somebody in a banjo, and they're going to know what's up.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest, I play bass. That's like my main instrument. I can play guitar. You know, I can do okay on keys. I hold my own on drums. But I used to work at Guitar Center. I worked there for like 10 years, and I picked up every instrument that ever walked through that store. And the only one I could not get my head around was the banjo. The neck was so skinny. The highest string was on the top.
Yeah.
The open back when it was open, so you got that full drum.
Yeah.
Something about it just twisted my brain in the wrong way. So anytime somebody actually can play one competently, my hats are always off. That is just such an impressive feat because it's such a strange instrument to me, but it's such a cool instrument.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I think not having experience with guitars and stuff like that.
That may be it.
And, you know, one of the cool things about it is like standard tuning is in open G. So you hit the chord or hit the strings and you're playing a chord without even anything on the neck. So, you know, it makes it a lot. I think it's a good beginner instrument. And I had a lot of people tell me, oh, you're playing a banjo for the first time for any instrument? You're an idiot. And, they tried to,
No, I mean,
I was like, well, I'm going to learn.
If you're playing an instrument, you're doing it right. Like, that's the only thing to it. Anybody watching this who thinks otherwise, just play an instrument. It doesn't matter.
And you can learn at any age.
Yeah.
I started learning at the age of 40. I'm 46 now. And now, we're playing shows now and stuff. The original goal was just to play on the porch fluently and stuff. And it just started out with, fiddle tunes, which we still do a lot of that stuff. And it's pretty awesome. But then after a couple of years, I started feeling this desire to start wanting to sing and stuff. And I was like, dude, I could start playing banjo versions of these old punk rock songs that I love.
Yeah.
And
it translates surprisingly well.
Yeah, it really does. And then I started doing that. And then it's like, oh, well, let's start writing some of my own songs and stuff like that. And it kind of really helped me to process a lot of like my childhood trauma and stuff and just kind of get stuff out there,
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get into what y'all do in the present day in just a little bit, but I've got a couple foundation questions I like to check in with everybody on. So let's get those knocked out real quick.
All right.
And you can answer in whichever order you'd like. But this first one is one we ask early. It's one we ask often, and it's definitely a crowd favorite. What was the first album y'all ever bought with your own money?
Well, off the top of my head, I know with my own money, it was definitely in the punk rock realm. I'd have to say it was probably either the Vandals Sweating to the Oldies or, Black Flag Damaged.
Oh, yeah.
I can't really quite remember exactly which one.
I was going to say, those are both pretty interchangeable on the quality scale, so you didn't make a bad choice either way.
I really, before I got into, punk rock, as a kid, I grew up just listening to whatever came to me, was fed to me, listening to some good old-fashioned glam rock, butt rock in the beginning. And then as I got a little older, my older cousins, they got me into heavy metal and stuff. And, I liked Metallica and all that. But then as I really started thinking for myself more and I discovered like Dead Kennedys and my mind was blown. And that's where my money was going.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
that really kind of set the foundation, and just, Black Flag, they're kind of like the DIY godfathers, basically.
Yeah. Hell yeah. No, that's awesome. And then what about you?
Yeah, it's so fun to think about this question because, I mean, of course, there were albums that, my supportive parents would buy for me throughout my childhood. But it was often more of that, like, top 40, like, what's your spoon fed through the radio.
A grip of the Now CDs. Yep.
Oh, hell yeah. You know. And in high school, I remember a friend of mine introduced me to the Souls of Mischief. I remember hearing 93 Till Infinity for the first time. I'm like, hold up. This hits different. I'm gonna need to delve down this little rabbit hole a bit more. And 40 Ounces to Freedom by Sublime was the first like transformative album for me that I just listened to day in and day out. And it's very much grounded in the principles of folk music. There are songs that they made popular that were by old reggae bands or punk rock bands and
Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
I love, folding in these different influences that are so unexpected into our music now. And so looking back on that, I see that they did that then. And those are some of those early seeds that were planted within me. And, early on, I, of course, had heard like self-titled Sublime. And so then to delve into 40 Ounces to Freedom, and then for other friends to introduce me to like their deeper cuts, Robin the Hood, like all of those deep cuts. I'm like, oh, there's so much to dig into here. And then that introduced me to all of these other artists that influenced them, and to see them, fold all of that together in this, unique style.
We are big
So
Sublime fans.
Oh yeah. No, I could dig that. They are a very popular group, understandably so. And then what was the first live show y'all ever went to? That was like the first ones you wanted to go to. So like you saw what was happening, you got tickets, you went to it.
When I first moved to Portland, it was, this was one of my dreams come true. I saw the Vandals live with the Suicide Machines and Assorted Jelly Beans.
Oh, damn.
And my mind was blown. It was at La Luna. And man, yeah, that was my first one. I couldn't even believe it. Stage diving, crowd surfing, all that stuff. Living out my dream as a kid. Like, I could truly say that I've lived out my dreams, and those were my dreams.
Yeah, hell yeah. I mean, that sounds like a rad show for sure.
It was. And, I didn't know who Suicide Machines or sort of Jelly Beans were at the time. But
that's kind of the best when you go to a show where you don't know, like, at least part of the lineup, and then you're like, now I have to know them.
Yeah.
Or like if your friends take you to a show that you don't, which I know isn't the answer to the question, but like when your friends take you to a show where you're like, I don't know any of these people.
Yeah.
Even you're like, oh, Coheed and Cambria is a band? What are they? Like you just fall onto those names where you're like, I think I'm going to know of this name for a long time.
Yeah. And that was in 1996. And I'm still, one of my homeboys, James, I remember I ran into him at Pioneer Square, and, he looked like some punk rock dude. He's like, oh, we're going to the Vandals. And I'm still friends with him to this day.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Hey, that's a great way to meet people.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Big up, James.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Shout out James.
Hey.
And then what about you?
Yeah, well, I was so grateful for my supportive parents hooking me up with, tickets to the likes of Alanis Morissette at age 10 in 1995. And
damn, shout out your parents.
Right? And Jay-Z in middle school. You know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh.
Blink-182.
Your parents adopt me? Is it too late?
And all the homies. So yeah, there were some of those larger concerts that I went to throughout my childhood and younger years. And then I think it was the A-Team, that Abstract Rude and AC Alone show that Chuck invited me to in the summer of 2004, 2 decades ago, that really hit me, and like got me down that path. I then would see them when they would come up north to Olympia, and there was just, this whole crew, the Project Blowed Collective from Southern California that would make the rounds in the Pacific Northwest. And so I would, introduce my friends up there to that music, and that was what really got me down this path of embracing the underground. There were other, smaller shows that I went to, like punk rock shows and, little raves, I guess, in my high school years here in Portland that, I don't even remember who those bands were, but I'm like,
that's fair. Yeah.
That was so fun too, so there's so many different ways to approach that question. I love it.
Yes, very much so. Well, thank you all both for sharing.
Yeah.
But now let's go ahead and let's get on into y'all in the present day. And we're going to get a super easy one out of the way. How'd you pick the name?
Well, first we were just going through like what should our name be, brainstorming, and we first came up with the name the Rugged Raven String Band, but it never really stuck.
That's fair.
You know, and then anyways, her dad is a hardcore train enthusiast, and then we met at Pioneer Square, and we both, you know, took the Max train to go down there, and so that was really cool. And one of our favorite bands, the Tillers, it's on their song Like a Hole in My Head. Towards the end of the song, and like at the time they were like our number one band, and they're like at the end of the song it's like that Westbound City Train, and you know, like we were just like, all right dude, Westbound City Train, that's gonna be our song.
Oh yeah,
or that's gonna be the name of our band.
Well, shout out to the Tillers then.
Yeah, they inspired us so much.
Hell yeah, I love that. And then let's talk about the writing process. Because y'all, you know, you work together, you live together, you make the music together. How do you go about getting a track started?
Well, I'm the one that does most of the writing, you know. You know, there's different routes that I take. You know, a lot of time I write down notes and stuff. If I hear like an interesting line just out in the world, I'll put it down. Or if I hear like a cool verse in a song that I like or something, I'll just write like that little verse down and stuff, and I'll get a whole bunch of notes. And then, you know, I just kind of keep looking at them and see if I could build off of them. You know what I mean? I usually write the lyrics first is what I do. And I got a whole bunch of like different chord progressions that I have in my book. And once I get the lyrics down, that's when I see what kind of chord progressions sound really cool. You know, I usually add pretty simple, easy chord progressions, you know, but that's kind of the way I like it, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's mostly, I just have a bunch of notes. Some of the songs seems like to take forever, and some of them just come like that, you know?
I understand that for sure. And then once you kind of get it built, how do you usually go about like joining in or like building out the song from there?
You know, I mostly just improvise and figure out what sounds good on the fiddle. And sometimes, you know, Chuck will share the chords with me, and then I'll bust out on the banjo just to get a better feel of the song and to orient myself, because I love playing the banjo also. Mostly play the fiddle, but yeah, I know my way around a banjo.
Is there like a baritone banjo and y'all could do dueling banjos or like harmony banjo?
There totally is. Cary's amazing. You could give her based about any instrument and she could pick it up and start busting out on it. She knows how to get it.
I know how those people are. Yep.
She's one of those type of people, you know, where I'm like very structured and I'm a slow learner and stuff like that. Cary's, she knows how to just.
I'm grateful for my background. You know, I was in chamber choir in high school, you know, so I have that, you know, musical knowledge. The music theory is something that I've been grounding myself in throughout my life. And so I have that basis of structure that allows me to be more intuitive.
Yeah, you kind of have just the understanding of music kind of built into your like developmental part of your like era of growing.
Exactly. And so, you know, it's fun when Chuck will share a song with me, and, you know, sometimes it'll be fully developed, you know, lyrics wise. And sometimes he might say, hey, do you have something that you could throw in here? Or do you have thoughts about how this verse is sounding? Or, you know, so I've, you know, messed around and, you know, made a little edit here and there. And so it's fun to see how the songs can evolve, which is different for every single one.
Yeah. Sometimes, you know, I'll write a song and then I'll be like stuck. And then it's like, hey, Cary, well, why don't you finish off the lyrics? And then she puts words in there that I totally wouldn't be able to come up with. And then, then the song's done.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm curious because, you know, like I said, I assume, you know, live together and things like that. Do you have like set times where you'll write? Do you just kind of like one day does someone come home and go, I need to do this today? Like how do you make time for music?
I'm basically just doing it all the time. You know what I mean? Yeah, I just do it all, you know, not like all, like all day, every day, but you know, like I have fortunate enough to have enough free time to where I'm able to just, whenever stuff comes in my head, I put it down, and usually in the evening times and stuff like that, and just whenever I get inspired on something, and, sometimes I'll be focused on learning the fiddle tunes, I go back and forth on stuff like that.
Okay.
But I got this notebook, and I just try to keep on writing stuff down whenever like I said, a cool line comes to my head, or like just a idea or something like that,
And so also, our sound is a little more aligned with that old time music sound because, with bluegrass, there's a lot of, intricate ornamentation and solos, whereas we mostly just like play together the whole time. It's very rhythmically driven. I'm mostly playing, chords on the fiddle. But I took lessons from, shout out to Miss Fiddle, my homegirl Jessica, who I met on Fallout 76.
I thought her last name was actually Fiddle. I was like, whoa, what a coincidence.
And she and I did weekly lessons together. She lives on the East Coast, and we would meet up, via video chat and walk through old time songs that I was interested in learning. And then we met every couple of weeks, and I'm just so grateful for that time to learn these pieces. We ended up delving into Irish music. And so sometimes we'll take a song that Charlie wrote, or even, I'm thinking about like that punk rock medley of like
Black
Flag medley, where in the middle it's in E minor, and one of my favorite Irish tunes to play on the fiddle is Toss the Feathers. And I'll bust that out in between the verses, like I'll just kind of play along the rhythm during the verses and when we're singing, and then during that instrumental time, there's a little Toss the Feathers, like get some of that ornamentation in the mix.
Yeah. Oh, that's clever. I like that.
It's
I like
so
that
fun.
a lot.
It's really kind of putting both of what we do together.
Yeah. Yeah.
So fun.
Especially for being like a medley already, to just like interject it with something that's like gonna be like ear tickling. People are gonna be like, I know that. Even if they don't know it by name, they're gonna know it.
Like that's something a little different.
Yeah.
In the mix.
Yeah, but then it's gonna be familiar mixed with familiar that's like not the same familiar, but it's not gonna even be long enough for people to like put the pieces together per se. But that's really clever. I love that.
So true.
And when y'all are putting music together, do you like aim for a certain sound or style or approach, or is this just what you do now is kind of what's kind of become the sound?
I mean, I feel like this is kind of naturally what it's become. I don't think we're ever like, I want to be like this. I've had people tell me, you sound like a pirate, Chuck, and, stuff like that, but I don't think we ever really aimed to sound like a specific sound. What do you think?
We're a bit unexpected because we play clawhammer, banjo, and the fiddle. You might assume that that's in this box of, old time music or, bluegrass or, what have you.
I mean, I've heard people play everything on everything.
Call our music eclectic folk because we like to fold in all of these different influences and sounds.
Yeah. We just like to take the stuff we're influenced by and do our own versions of it. And put actually who we are out there.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
I've written one song. It's called Malala I. You can find it on SoundCloud. It's not yet on Spotify. We do have our EP on Spotify, which we released a couple of months ago.
Called Cup of Water.
A Cup of Water. We got a couple of other songs on SoundCloud, and Malala I is one of them.
Yes.
And that one started with, I don't know if you're familiar with the Malala I, but it's
I'm not.
amazing basalt lava rosette on the Malala River. That shrank, and it's got this beautiful pattern. It's huge. It's like 40 or 50 feet tall, and it's one of my favorite places in this region. And I had this concept for a song called Malala I. So it's like, on my way, I know I'll find that fabled, the mythic Malala I. And so I started with that. And then I just built some verses around that and, mess around here and there. And it's my first song that I wrote.
That's awesome. Hell yeah. Well, y'all definitely go check that out. Pause this. We'll be right here. Go check it out. Come right back. And actually, that's a great segue. Let's go ahead and talk about the EP a little bit. Which again, it's titled Cup of Water. It came out in March of this year, and it's really fun. I really like it. It's very gritty. It's very raw. And each track kind of has its own vibe, which is nice. Like usually like it's easy, especially on an EP, to just be like, here's kind of this approach, the style. But each track kind of gave something different. And I really appreciated that. And y'all kind of nailed it. It's very much a mix of like old timey and punk and folk. And you can kind of see the influences of all of that. But I do this bit where I pick out one that I really enjoyed. And I'm going to be honest, I had a hard time. I really did like the whole EP. But I went with Cluck Old Hen.
Oh.
And it was a little heavier on the fiddle. But I mean, just because I don't understand banjo 1,000%. So I was just like, there's that. And it also just had this like, it had this sway to it. There's just this like rhythmic element that I think is definitely like, it just kind of grabs you and sits you in right there. But like I said, I actually really enjoyed the whole EP. So actually, if y'all haven't listened to that yet, pause this again. I know you just came back, but go listen to it. But I am curious to know, which track is y'all's favorite to perform individually, like from each person, not as like the whole group, but which ones do you guys like to perform?
I mean, for me, my favorite one to perform is probably Jim Jones at Botany Bay, which...
that was so close to being the one I picked, too.
Because, a lot of time at the bars, during the song, we'll go, hey! And, like, a lot of times, a lot of the people in the audience will hop on that, and there's a lot of audience participation. Mm-hmm. And we close our set out with that one. So that's probably my favorite one, But, I mean, I love doing them all.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
When the audience participates, it's pretty awesome.
I could totally see that. Hell yeah.
It's so fun. And I would echo Jim Jones at Botany Bay. We first heard that song in Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. Mm-hmm. Daisy Domergue plays it in this really delicate fashion. And we haven't heard anybody play it the way that we play it. We've checked out, because it's an old Australian folk song. Mm-hmm. So there's lots of renditions. But we bring a little something different. And Chuck added an element to it.
The haze part.
The haze. Yeah. So like we've added our own touches to it.
And it's more upbeat, the version we do.
Yeah.
And we tried something different. So I had an idea recently to create a medley between Beat on My Banjo and Jim Jones at Botany Bay, because they're both in G minor.
I was going to say, those two would go so good next to each other,
They
too.
are so good.
Damn, that makes so much sense.
From Mighty Mo's, our most
I still got to edit it and stuff. But
for sure. So yeah, that'll be up on YouTube sometime soon when the editing's done from our show last week.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so we've been practicing this recently because it is something new. We're like, can we pull this off? Can we pull off this transition between our original and this old Australian folk song? And we do. It's so fun. Because I found myself playing, when I first learned the that main, fiddle melody for Jim Jones at Botany Bay, I stuck pretty closely to it, and I'm like, there's a very specific sequence of notes. And as I've gotten to know this song over the years, because we've been playing it for several years now, I'm able to just improvise a little bit more. And I would find myself playing Jim Jones at Botany Bay during Beat on My Banjo. And I'm like, hold up. What's going on here? Oops. And they're perfect.
Yeah, I was going to say
that's such a happy accident.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say. That's awesome. I love that. I love that. Well, yes, definitely. If y'all get it up before this comes out, which I think is in a few days. So if it happens to come up in time, let me know and I'll link it in the bio. And if not, y'all go look for it if it's there yet. And definitely check that out as well. That's exciting. That sounds really cool.
And then, Cluck Old Hen, we first heard that from the Whiskey Shivers, who's a band who is sadly no more, but they were so influential for us in those early days when we first discovered our love for this music and playing this music together. We got to see them perform a couple of times, first at the Roseland and then again at Bunk Bar, which was so epic because it was just such an intimate space.
I was going to say that is a good spot.
We knew all their
downtown.
We were singing along with them. They came down on the floor and we all surrounded them for Rocky Top. And that's another old.
If you haven't heard
song.
Whiskey Shivers, they are sadly broken up, but check out.
Hey, their music's still there.
They are awesome. And
Bobby Fitzgerald.
They identify as like a trash grass band.
Whoa. That's a cool way to... I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. That's such a cool genre.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And the Cluck Old Hen video that they did is just such a trip. Like, they've got this guy in this chicken suit and he's being heckled, and we're like, whoa, what is going on here? This is some avant-garde
But then we dug
avant-garde presentation of the song.
we dug deeper into the song, and it's like hundreds of years old and stuff, and there's so many different renditions of it, you know, and it's a classic song.
Hell yeah.
That was another one that my homegirl Jessica and I worked through together in my early fiddle lesson days. And, it's traditionally performed in A minor, but we play it in G minor these days. And it was another one where, like, I had a very specific sequence and these different techniques that I would use. But now I am able to improvise a little bit more with it. And I still enjoy that specific sequence, just kind of as like a challenge.
Yeah.
And just because it's fun to play. But it's so fun to see how we can build our relationships with these songs and how they evolve over time.
Hell yeah. No.
So now that we play this in G minor, though, we got to do a whole medley.
I was going to say, yeah, wouldn't that work with all?
Jim Jones and Botany Day, beat on my banjo, Cluck Old Hen.
That could be how you could close up Jim Jones with like a mixture of all three, kind of as a like callback to your full set as that.
The wheels, they are turning.
Yeah. And now, but moving on with the interview part, because there's still more questions to ask.
Yes, yes.
When it comes to creative differences, how do y'all go about sorting those out? Because I imagine, not 100% of the time do you agree on everything 100% of the time.
Absolutely,
we are but humans.
Not at all. No, that could be the challenging part. Cary's more classically trained. I'm kind of like this punk rock, type of stuff. How would you say that we work it out?
Yeah, I'm very conscientious about, fitting things within the number of beats allocated. And, I can tend to be on that more conscientious side. And so Chuck challenges me to bring that more, punk rock, improvisational, organic vibe to the mix, which is great. But there are definitely those challenges when we're working together and we're trying to sort out why something isn't working. It's fun, but it
can be a challenge at times. But you know what they say, iron sharpens iron, the same as another person sharpens another. And so I think the differences that we have helps us to be better.
And we've worked through those, in a way that has caused us to build our communication understandings.
I was going to say, I imagine that kind of just helps with the relationship in general, because it's like you're not arguing, but you're presenting ideas to each other. And so you're going to develop that form of conversation that just kind of comes from it. And I imagine that eventually seeps outside of itself and kind of, makes its way into other parts of life.
Yeah.
It's so true. And, I think of songs like Sets in the West, for example, which for whatever reason, we just couldn't quite get on the same page, but it's one of my favorite songs that Chuck wrote several years back. And so it was one of those early tracks that for whatever reason, it really clicked early on. And then there's a disconnect for whatever reason. And so we've just kind of set it aside and then revisit it, tweak things a little bit here and there. And it's evolved into something pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
These days.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, we'll set things aside if we really need to.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with that in the world of music.
That we're not going to reconcile today.
Well, hey, I think that's important to acknowledge as well.
Yeah.
And it's so fun too, because there is, oh my gosh, such a deep repertoire of Westbound City Train that we forget about sometimes. And we're like, oh, let's pick up these old pieces.
We have a
can
lot
develop into something new.
We're waiting to record. We have plans to throw down a couple more to make some full length album and stuff. We're just waiting to, we're waiting to get into the studio.
Hell yeah.
The EP was just the beginning of all this stuff, because we actually do have a huge catalog of stuff ready to roll.
Oh, that's exciting. Definitely looking forward to that.
Okay.
For this next one, I want to think about right before you do live stuff. Do you have any like routines or rituals you do either individually or together to like get ready before you go into the stage or before you go into the studio or anything like that?
Nothing really special, I don't think, do you?
I mean, this might be a no-brainer for some people, but I've come to find out that, not everybody does practice in the same way that we do. We practice,
practice.
lots.
One would hope that practicing is kind of a staple part.
We do
You
like
would hope
that.
that you would, and so yeah, I mean, practicing the week leading up to a show in particular, having a plan to go through the different songs and see which ones might have trouble points that we want to focus in on, and then, just like building that muscle memory. I mean, that's the big way that we prepare.
Yeah, like,
there's nothing like right before.
I put the sets together. I was a cab driver for 10 years. I'm right on time, as you can tell by this interview, maybe a little bit early, and we don't really improvise which songs, like, whatever song, we'll play this song. No, let's play this. Like, I know what songs we're going to play in what order. So I just make sure the thing is, I kind of like it. So I build it up and stuff, and I just have it. I put the set the way that I like it and, make sure it's all set up. And that way we know what we're doing when we get out there. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And we want to connect with our community, so like our monthly shows at Mighty Mo's Tanker.
Mighty Mo's.
Last Sunday of every month. Or, these other different shows that we and or other friends have been hosting. We just love connecting with our friends in community and with these establishments that we're building these partnerships and relationships with, so just being in that space in community amongst all of these other musicians that inspire us,
which
that's the big thing.
We're part of a music collective called the Boxcar Collective. And we usually, most of the shows, there's usually some of them or all of them, and we all play together. So, we all have love for each other. So there's just something kind of cool about that.
Oh, yeah, no, that's awesome. And I guess when you play at the same place somewhat consistently, I imagine part of that is the routine or the ritual to begin with.
Yeah.
Setting up.
Yeah.
Which Mighty Mo's feels like home to us, It's like, it's pretty cool there.
I love that. And then looking back from like when y'all first started doing music together to now, how has your sound evolved over time? How has it like changed from when you first started to where you're at presently?
Well, in the beginning, it was just old time and stuff. So now there's a bunch of songs that we wrote, punk rock songs, different folk songs. I'm singing, so it's evolved a whole bunch. We still do the old time music and stuff too, because we love all that. But I feel like we've put our own style out there a little more now.
And I've enjoyed singing more on the tracks that Chuck is primarily our vocalist for. Because, as I mentioned with my chamber choir days, I was an alto and mezzo soprano. And so I love harmonizing and adding that ornamentation. And it's kind of just evolved naturally over time because I hear him playing these songs all the time at home. So I'm singing along with him
you're going to hear them anyway.
So people are hearing, what I come up with organically, as I'm just enjoying this music that Chuck's playing. And then, of course, I wasn't playing Irish fiddle tunes at all when we first started. And then I got into that zone a little bit later. So you hear more of those, grace notes and turnarounds and ornamentation from Irish fiddle music that I'll just fold in just for fun, in unexpected ways.
Hell yeah. Oh, no, I love that. Now, we've got one last question to go in this middle portion, and we're going to go individual answers on this one because I've slowly started to integrate this into more of the band talks. But this is how we wrap up the middle portion in general, and it's probably the densest question in the interview. But, we've talked a lot about music, your experiences, your reactions, the things that have gotten you into it to begin with. But when it's just you and music one-on-one, what does music give back to each of you individually?
Well, for one, it helps me to get, all my feelings that I have inside out. It helps me to process stuff. I get natural dopamine hits from it, which is really nice. And, like that one ranted song, radio, radio, radio. When I got the music, I got a place to go. So, when everything's going all crazy around me, it gives me a place to go, and I could hear like lyrics and stuff that I'm feeling and stuff that like resonate with me and stuff like that, So that's what the main thing that I would say. And, also now that I'm playing music, I'm able to study music more, so I'm listening to it a little bit differently. Like people I look up to, I could start listening to what they're doing in ways that I could improve on what I'm doing and stuff. So that's pretty nice too.
You know, that's a perspective I've never thought about for like somebody who gets into music later in life, how they get to almost re-experience all the music they've already experienced. That's actually really cool. Thank you so much for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
And then what about you?
Yeah, I love how music carves new neural pathways. So one of the early, online teaching resources that Charlie found was a guy named Banjo, Josh Turkneck. Go check him out if you want to learn clawhammer banjo. He also has a set of fiddle lessons and more.
And he's a neurologist.
And he's a neurologist.
So
he
he's
breaks
smart.
down the fact that yes, adults can learn new things, and we can carve new neural pathways and restructure our brains through music. So that's so powerful to me. And, I love music of all different varieties. I've got countless Spotify playlists for, hundreds of hours on end of, hip hop, old time music, folk punk. Like I've got my, different playlists for different time periods. So I just love all the different types of music that's out there. And, I don't want to put myself in a box.
No, totally.
Ever.
Well, I have a 5,600 song playlist I can share with you after. That was from the first year of the show when I did audio only.
Love that.
Including the ones that didn't make it onto the episode.
Yes.
So,
those are the best.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Well, thank you both for sharing that. But now let's go ahead and we're going to move on to some hypothetical questions. And for these, sky's the limits. The questions are all made up, so the answers are allowed to be as well. But this first one's a little straightforward. If the band could share a bill with any one band, who would you each want it to be? And the only requirement is they have to be a currently active band.
I mean, the first stuff that comes to my head is either Al Scorch or the Tillers. Both those people are the ones that inspired me to play the banjo. And, I'd love to play with, Al Scorch. That would be like a straight up dream of mine, or the Tillers. Either one of those bands. I look up to those guys so much, and that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Oh yeah.
Same. Yeah, the Tillers was the first band that came to mind for me. They were so influential in those early days. We got to see them perform in Chicago when they
with Al Scorch.
With Al Scorch and Pert Near Sandstone. We got to see Al Scorch a few months prior here in Portland at the Doug Fir. Got to dance alongside him when the other bands were playing. That was so fun.
Oh, the Doug Fir is a good venue too.
It was so good.
I'm so curious what the new one's going to be.
I know. I'm so
Can't wait. Yeah.
I'm curious. So yeah, the Tillers for sure. I also think about Deadwood Revival, who was that band that I had mentioned when I was up in Olympia, Washington, when I first got introduced to what I now know as old time music and not bluegrass. I just heard that they came out because they've had a few different iterations of their band over time.
Yeah.
They started as Tongue and Groove, a Grateful Dead cover band. They were Deadwood Revival and then Joy and Mudville. I just heard their announcement that they have a new project in the works called Mars Garden.
Okay.
Who knows what
Yeah.
that's all about? But
a bunch of Mars Volta covers.
I love Deadwood Revival's old time.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And then subsequently, who's a local band that y'all haven't gotten to play with yet, but you think would be fun to play along with?
I think a band that would be fun to play along with would be the Builders and the Butchers. That would be a pretty open up for those guys or something. I like what they're doing. They really put some pretty tight stuff out there, and I'd love to open up for those guys.
And they're like folk punk, right? Or old time. I can't
They got their own, they got to play banjo. They got their own little style going on. I think we could fit in good with what they, but I mean, if you're saying local, I mean, dude, even Aesop Rock lives in town. I'd love to open up for Aesop.
Nobody else knows that.
We lived in the same neighborhood.
We walked right by. Going to the I was like,
in Buckman neighborhood, yeah.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah, dude, if I had $1 for every time I tell somebody that, they're like, wait, what? That's so cool. I never meet anybody who else is aware. Not that I'm sure plenty of people know this. This isn't underground news. But I rarely ever hear anybody else say that out loud. So cool to know.
For real. And then this next one, this would be a reach because he is an international fiddle sensation. But I just learned 2 years ago that Kevin Burke, renowned Sligo fiddler, he grew up in England. His family's from Sligo County, Ireland, but he's been in Portland for the last 40 years. And I'm like, what? How did I not know this until 2022? His rendition of Toss the Feathers in E minor is what I mentioned that I like to play in that Black Flag medley. And we got to see him perform at the Alberta Rose Theatre in around like St. Paddy's Day 2023. Yeah, last year. That was amazing. He signed his music book that I got, and it's been so fun to learn those songs from that book.
He's like the MF Doom of fiddling for her.
Okay.
The best.
Yeah, hell yeah.
The best.
Well, everybody, you know what to do. At them in the comments. Let's see if we can make that happen. And then for this next one, this is a fun one. Have fun with this. Anybody can answer who comes up with what first. But if the band's music could be the soundtrack of any movie, what movie would you pick?
The first one that comes to mind for me is one that we've had a concept for a music video, which is Papillon. So, it's about these prisoners who are being toted off to Australia. And we're like, that would be sick to have like some of those background shots for like a music video for Jim Jones at Botany Bay or something.
And I'm so grateful she said that because that's the exact movie I was thinking of, but I couldn't remember the name.
We're one and the same.
I was going to say, man, y'all are really on the same page on this. It's almost like you know each other really well.
So it happens when you live with somebody for 14 years.
Fair enough. Hell yeah. And then to wrap up the hypothetical questions, if you could add one more abstract instrument into the band, so not just like the standard guitar, bass, drums, let's go outside the box on this. But if you could add one more instrument to the band, what would you each want to add in? And you could either play it yourself or have someone else play it. That kind of sky's the limits on that.
The first one that comes to mind is the theremin that our good friend Chris Schwalik, a.k.a. a spherical banana, busts out from...
Another good name. Oh, my God.
Big up, Boxcar Collective member.
Hell yeah.
Yep. Chris and Allie and Jessica comprise a spherical banana. And Chris busts out on the theremin like you wouldn't believe.
I mean, if they could do the Doctor Who theme song, I will bow down to them for competency. But yes, no, that is a hard instrument to get good at. Harder to get good at than the banjo, I'd say. But when you do it right, it's a cool instrument for sure. Hell yeah.
He's a theremin wizard and getting out there.
I don't think there's any other term. I don't think you're a thereminist. You are a theremin wizard. Oh yeah.
Check out Spherical Banana. You won't regret it.
Yeah. And then what would you add to the band?
I mean, I don't think you're going to get much more obscure than that, but I wouldn't mind having, like a mandolin in there or something. I know that's still kind of like a mainstream instrument.
I mean, that's...
You know what I'm saying? But we've had a mandolin player before. Our band started out as 5 people.
Oh, okay.
In the beginning, you know what I mean? But people moved away and stuff like that.
Oh, don't I know?
Don't
I know?
That's one good thing about being married to one of the bandmates. And
can't move away. I mean, wouldn't want to move away.
and it's helped us to streamline our band, too, which has made it easier in a lot of ways. But
I'm sure y'all are still open to, like, when other people can come and join you on stage, they're welcome to.
Yes.
So true.
Yeah.
Ian Schickel busts out on that cigar box and, wine box massacre, big ups. One of our Boxcar.
He's the sound man for our crew and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he makes all of his own instruments from wine boxes and cigar boxes.
Interesting. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they've
He is
played with
badass.
any of those.
Do not sleep on wine box.
No. All right. Well, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and start wrapping this up. What can we look forward to between now and January?
Well, we have a bunch of shows planned. We do our, last Sundays every month at Mighty Mo's Tanker with the Boxcar Collective. And we also have special guests every month, too. So we'll be doing that. We're going to be recording another album here pretty soon. And, basically these shows that we got going on, and look forward to us dropping another album. And we have probably about, I think 7 shows booked right now here in the next 3 months. So, just go to our Instagram or whatever. We put all of our, shows on there. Come check us out and around Portland at different venues and come see what we do and come see some of our friends too. Because, being with the whole Boxcar Collective, we put a whole good vibe on together as well, like about the whole thing. It's not just us. It's our community of people.
That's awesome. For this next one, then go ahead and look straight at the cameras and tell everybody how they can find you.
Well, you can we're Westbound City Train, like we said. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Spotify, all the streaming services. You know, if you want to see just some raw video footage, go find us on YouTube. And we're on SoundCloud, you know, most of the major stuff. You just check us out.
Your preferred social media platform, we are probably on. YouTube is a fun one because you can see the progress that we've made all the way back to 2018 when we first started. You can see Chuck rocking that bum diddy, bum diddy.
It started out just keeping track.
See the evolution.
Of the evolution of me playing. And now it's like, oh, now we're playing in a band together. And we got all these other... But, you know, on the YouTube channel, it's not just us. It's also a Boxcar Collective people and stuff, too. And I got highlight videos I've made from the shows at Mighty Mo's. And yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Some raw video footage. It's pretty cool, though.
Oh, yeah. And then any other plugs, any other shout outs, anybody else you'd like to put on here while you're on here?
Well, let's give a shout out to the Boxcar Collective, which consists of us, Winebox Massacre, Shane Farnell, Spherical Banana, The Waterfly, and Batfaith Bullshit. All those guys.
Supply.
Yep.
Batfaith Bullshit.
They're all badass. You know, we recently played with this band, Found Footage, out of Portland. They're pretty badass. And yeah, shout out to all those guys. Big up.
Everyone that's been a part of the Westbound City Train story, from, you know, those early members that we mentioned to the Laurelhurst Park crew. If it's a beautiful day in Portland, you can bet Chuck and the crew are going to be posted up at Laurelhurst Park, busting out.
I love playing on the streets.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Playing on the streets, getting down in the parks, you know, big ups to Mighty Mo's.
Mighty Mo's Tanker, big up Mo for giving us
49th and Hawthorne.
Giving us such a big opportunity and become our friend and stuff like that. And
you feel like you're in an upside down like ship.
Yeah. And big up to the Portland, Oregon open mic scene.
For real.
So many different open mics, and I've met so many awesome artists to even name them all. And, you know, that's how I started, you know, throwing these shows at Mighty Mo's and stuff, from meeting all these people at the open mics and stuff.
Yeah. Hell yeah. All right. And with that being said, we've got one last question to go. But before we do, I'm going to steal the camera for just a second. As always, y'all, please make sure to like, subscribe, push all the buttons, do all the things. You know, I don't know where they are, but you do, and I trust you. And one more shout out to the Brothers Apothecary, Ronald Records, and Portland Water. Thanks for keeping us hydrated. And with that being said, the final question. And this is entirely up to your interpretation, and you all can answer in whichever order you'd like, whoever comes up with it first. But what is an album you feel is more on the obscure side? It's a deep cut, so it's one not a lot of people would know, but it's one you think everybody should know.
Well, if I've mentioned his name in this interview, I'm going to say Al Scorch, Circle Round the Signs.
Hell yeah.
So many awesome songs on there. Don't sleep on Al Scorch, Circle Around the Signs. Check it out. You won't regret it. He's from Chicago, and he's a badass. And you got to listen to that album. If you haven't heard it, you need to get it on your Spotify list or whatever you listen to music on.
Hell yeah.
I mentioned Kevin Burke. I can't believe I was not aware that he's been in Portland for 40 years, nearly.
Everybody make sure to add him in the comments. Let's see if we can get his attention.
Seriously. My mom used to take me to Cary events growing up, you know, so I was around Irish dancing and fiddling. And so who knows, maybe I did hear him as a child and then, you know, made that connection later on in life. But Sweeney's Dream, Kevin Burke.
Oh, yeah.
Has such beautiful ornamentation, and it just sounds so epic, and it really encapsulates all that I love about Irish fiddling.
Well, that's awesome. Those are two I have not heard before, so I'm excited to add them to my list of listening as well. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thank you both so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So fun.
It's been a blast.
Yeah.
Love it.
And this has been another exciting episode of Jimmy's Jambox. I'm Jimmy.
I'm Charlie.
I'm Cary. And we are
Westbound City Train.
And we're signing off. Later, y'all.
That's a wrap. This is not a podcast. This is a show.
Keep jamming.